levels of the reverbs, the amount of the bass, the loudness of the snare. I don't want to say it doesn't matter because, it matters a great deal to me and to a lot of you. So in that sense, it matters. But really, it doesn't matter. Welcome to Kush After Hours. My name's Gregory Scott. Tonight I'd like to do a little more Q&A with you and hit up an interesting topic that I think probably affects most of you out there. It certainly affects me, which is this thing where we mix and we're done, and then we're like, and then we do another mix, and then we're done, and then we're like, and then we do another mix, and we're like, yeah, this one's even better, and around we go, and then we have like 5, 10 more mixes. I don't know. I tend to average like 6 to 8 mixes sometimes. The thing is, do we need to be doing this? But really, more to the point, what do we do with all these mixes? Okay, at some point we know, okay, I got it. I better have it. But then we start listening to these mixes. This leads us to our question from Il Bigo. Sounds Italian to me. Il Bigo says, here's a thing I experience almost every time I mix a song, which is rarely because I'm slow and not a very good musician. I usually bounce a few different mixes, then I choose the best one the next day and proceed from there, and so on. The differences seem probably earth-shattering while I fiddle with plugins and EQs and volumes, and I end up with maybe a dozen mixes in a week. Then I listen a month later, and they all sound identical. Maybe a little more reverb here and there, maybe an obviously too loud bass or snare, but in the end, they're all the same, and I can't believe I put 2 hours of work between mix 5 and mix 6. I can't decide if A, my hearing is rotting very fast, or B, I'm snake oiling myself while I do my supposed producer magic. Yeah, this is a juicy question. I love it. If the intro didn't make it clear, this really is a universal or a near universal phenomenon, especially for mixers who are mixing their own music, because we get a little geeky about this crap. Here's the thing. I think that when you listen to those mixes with enough detachment, you will probably realize that by and large, they're mostly the same or nearly the same, or in fact, I think the most important question is they're effectively the same, meaning they have no meaningful differences in terms of, what's our mission here? Say it with me. Emotionally impacting the listener, right? Making them feel something. But the flip side of this is, that's actually the analysis you ought to be making. And if you're noticing how much reverb there is, or you're analyzing the snare sound in each mix, you're going to miss that big picture. So when you listen to all of your mixes, you got to put engineer hat down, and you got to put the producer hat on. It's a tricky little switch to make. It's a gear shift. But if you make it, then things start to maybe get interesting. Because you will probably find, if you're like me, that in the vast majority of cases with songs, one of those mixes pops. When I say pops, I mean oftentimes literally, kind of something about it pops out of the speakers and grabs you. That's what you want. So let's talk for a few minutes here about what you should be listening for, and maybe what you shouldn't be listening to when analyzing your mixes. The first thing that I recommend you trying to get an ear for when comparing different mixes is the groove. Just listen to the groove, and I don't mean listening to the kick and the snare and the hi-hats. I mean the groove, the way the music is or isn't moving. For me, a lot of times I find that as I work a mix repeatedly and I get to mix 5 and mix 6, what I'm hunting for more and more is clarity. Right? I'm getting more and more things to poke through or sound good. Tone is another one where I'm like, oh, wow, I really got a smooth snare sound on this mix, baby. Then you listen back for things. If you listen for groove, that shit doesn't matter at all, or hardly at all, really. So you set aside, don't listen to tonality, don't listen to individual instruments. You don't want to be all proud of your snare sound. I mean, you do want that, but what you really want is for the groove to be kicking ass. A lot of times that analysis alone makes it crystal clear which mix to go with. And for me, groove uber alles. Groove absolutely is the most critical thing because that's what grabs people in the bodies. If you got a mix that's grooving, I don't know what else matters. Poor vocal performance, grating vocal tone, tubby bass, none of it matters because it's grooving. So that's my top level analysis generally when I'm listening to mix 1 versus mix 12 versus mix 14, whatever. The next level down, I will listen for the vocal. And I'll listen for that X factor, something in that vocal, because that, by and large, is what 90+% of your listeners on your music, whether that's millions of people or, in the case of Sneaky Little Devil, thousands of people, doesn't matter. Most of them are listening for the vocal. Even if they're engineers, by and large, when they're listening to music they love, they're going to settle in on that vocal. What you want to note is there's probably going to be, hopefully there's going to be a moment in song, in the mix, when you just like, you get that, you get some kind of a feeling in your gut, in your heart, up your spine, your face scrunches up like that, your little stank face or whatever. That is an amazing cue right there. When you have a moment like that in a mix, there's probably more of them. And that if you have that, Lord, if you have a groovy mix and you have at least one moment where the vocal just like does something to you like that, just call it. Stop listening to the rest of the mixes and be like, that's the one. Because that's another trick to this sort of analysis is you have to be willing to just have a little bit of faith and trust in your instincts and in your work. That let's just say you were going to listen to 8 mixes and compare them. I'm not sure quite how you do that, but if you do that, you get to mix 2, you get to mix 3, and you're like, damn, this is really, really good. Just stop. Just stop there. And here's what I like to do is I will freaking delete. I just delete. Here's a controversial and interesting let's take a little side passage on this episode. I don't know if you're subscribed to the newsletter at thehouseofkush.com. That's my essays. I write them far less frequently now that I've got this show. But if you like this show, you'll probably dig my older essays. I recommend signing up for that, or you can just read them on the website. Anyway, I did a newsletter on what I called vaulting, putting work in a vault. This was one of the greatest things that I ever did for myself. Was I realized that I had a friend that I could trust to say no to me. Bless her soul. Because I'm an overbearing personality, and when I push people, they tend to give me my way, but not this lady. So at some point I was like, oh, you know what? I could put my songs on a hard drive, give her that hard drive, and give her the ability to reset the password on the cloud-based backups that I have, 2 cloud-based backups and a local hard drive. She had all of that. She reset the passwords. She's got the hard drive. I can't touch my song anymore. I can't remix it, right? She understands the conditions are that she will only give me access to my own source files of music if I need it for licensing purposes because Netflix or Amazon or somebody else needs the stems or some kind of a remix. They need a vocal up or a vocal down. They need an instrumental or whatever. That's it. Otherwise, the answer is no. So that's a little aside there for how I've managed my tendency to rework stuff too much. I still rework stuff, let's be clear. But the point is, I generally have like one batch of reworking, and then I vault it, and I'm out of there. So getting back to what we're listening for here on our mixes, you listen for the groove, then you listen for the vocal to give you at least one of those moments. And then next tier down is listen for anything else in the song to really give you one of those moments where you're just like, oh, you feel something in your body. That feeling thing is what I'm talking about when I say working on instinct on an emotional level to make people feel something. That's how you connect with it in your body. You feel things. That's what I'm talking about is you will literally feel something. It's just, it doesn't have to have a name. It doesn't have to be excitement or enthusiasm. A lot of times it is. A lot of times I'm like, yeah, I shake my fist or whatever. That's all the information I need to be like, this thing is rocking. This is happening. This is good enough. Trust that. I button it up. So, groove, vocal moments, other moments in the music, making you feel things. If you get that out of a mix, I think that's good enough. And as Il Bigo has pointed out, levels of the reverbs, the amount of the bass, the loudness of the snare, I don't want to say it doesn't matter because, it matters a great deal to me and to a lot of you. So in that sense, it matters. But really, it doesn't matter. If it makes you feel things, if it's got a groove, that's all you need to know. And you just, at some point, at the end of the day, you really just have to be willing to make that analysis of, this is it, I'm done, and you move on. But if anybody understands how challenging that is, it's me. I really do. So by all means, do mix 1, 5, and 12. But maybe just change up what you're listening for and what you're not listening to when you're analyzing those mixes so that you can learn to hear past all the tremendous similarities that they have. Because at the end of the day, really, I don't know about you, but my mixes, by and large, they sound like me. And I've mixed a song all the way through, completely reset everything, remixed it again. It sounds almost identical. That's just, we can't help ourselves, right? We hear the way that we hear. Just be okay with that. Listen for the right things, get in touch with the bigger picture, and then learn to let it go. Because, man, there is such freedom when you learn to let stuff go. That's the power of when you upload something to YouTube and you put it on the streaming platforms too. Announce it to your communities. Irrevocable choices. Google that one if you haven't already. Anyway, that's my rant for the evening. Thanks so much for geeking out with me. My name's Gregory Scott. This has been Kush After Hours. See you soon.